Hi everyone. I want to make a video supporting or making a case for the tradwife. So recently I've been reading up on this tradwife thing, which is on TikTok. There are women who are content creators who are sharing about their lives and they're using the hashtag tradwife, and I think it's really nice and I like it. Um, in case you haven't guessed it yet, I am pretty much I came into anti-feminism via the traditionalist viewpoint. What is a tradwife? Basically, they are talking about being a stay-at-home mom and having the father go out to work, and he's the provider and she's the one who has the kids and takes care of the kids. And you can take it further to say they're talking about Christian values or religious values. I'm not religious, by the way, so I've never been religious. So although I started off traditional, I've never been religious. So it's not that I came in from to anti-feminism from a religious point of view, but yeah. So traditional values clearly are most known to be enforced by religion, by Christian values. In other parts of the world, it would be Muslim or whatever religion. Religions usually they have a long history. They are cultural, and yeah, so they are what you can look for if you want to know what traditional values are. However, it is very difficult to actually say what traditional values are because we each just grew up in our own world and have our own version of what traditional is. Traditional means something different to each person, right? In general, we can say it has something to do with marriage, it has something to do with a man, a woman, having children. The man is more responsible for providing than the woman is, and the woman is seen as a help to the man in terms of providing. And the woman's main role is as a baby maker. She has babies, she takes care of the babies, she helps in as much as she can outside of that. The man's main role is not really as a baby maker, but as a provider. He provides, and as a leader, he leads, right? So this is what tradwives are about. Now, feminists have a problem with tradwives, and I have looked at a lot of feminist videos and read quite a few feminist blogs on the tradwife issue that they have. And the main issue, it seems to be, okay, so I'm going to address the main issue that they have is that these women are not earning money, which means that she is vulnerable. She's in a vulnerable position because she doesn't have her own money. If the husband is to die, then she would be in trouble because she would have no money and a bunch of kids. If the husband is to cheat on her or leave her, she's also in trouble. The husband, if they have a divorce for whatever reason, he can go on to earn, but she has no career and she's left to just earn minimum wage, or she'll be in trouble. She can't provide for herself. She's also more exposed to domestic violence because he could beat her and she wouldn't feel like she can run away from the relationship because she's dependent on him. So she's in a dependent and vulnerable position. The feminists basically feel sorry for these tradwives, and they think that no one should encourage other women to be dependent on a man because it leaves you in a position where you could be abused, stuck, and where you don't have your own money, which is important to feminists because money is, important, right? So also if he dies and stuff like that. So basically that's the argument from feminists. I hear their argument, and I think the counter argument to that is definitely encourage women to put things in place or have a plan for if things go wrong. So yes, if you are in the position of a tradwife or a stay-at-home mom, you should have some type of insurance on your husband, a life insurance or something. I don't know, I guess. So that in case he does pass away or something, you can move on. In terms of cheating or the relationship ending and you not having a career, I think that each person is going to have to figure that out for themselves, and you're going to have to determine whether or not that makes sense in your life. In terms of, I think a lot of women, okay, we have traditional by culture, which is what feminists are arguing about, but we also have reality in that not all women are career women or were on a career path or whatever. There are many women who would have been working minimum wage jobs anyway, and they decide to stop working to stay at home because, first of all, it doesn't make as much financial sense for them to go out to work when they could be taking care of their children and doing something in the home that also benefits their family, and so on and so on. If something happens, these women will simply go out to work and they will have minimum wage jobs and they will be fine. I think in 2024, most people agree that everyone has to be educated to a standard so that they could get a job. Right. But okay, I will accept the feminist point that she still needs some sort of money or some sort of way to not feel like she's trapped or whatever. She needs her own money, right? This is the main claim, right? To that, I said you should put things in place to make sure that you feel secure, which I think is possible. But okay, you're saying she still needs money. I get it. Then the feminists complain, actually, these women are cosplaying. This is the complaint number 2. These are cosplaying women. They're not really tradwives. They're not tradwives at all because they're all creating content. They're creating content about their homesteads. They're creating content about their lives and da 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 da. And this is where I'm so confused. You wanted them to earn money. They try to earn money by being content creators, but this still upsets you. It upsets you that they don't earn money, and it upsets you that they do earn money. So it's like there are two main arguments that feminists are making at the same time, and they are completely contradictory. That I don't understand. So what I would say to that is, yes, feminist, she understands that she should earn some money, and that is why she's looking into content creation and things that she can do from home. A traditional housewife, in my opinion, or a traditional wife or whatever, is someone who prioritizes taking care of their children and would build any career or whatever around that. So to me, how I see it is that traditionally people lived on farms, or they had some sort of family business, or they had some sort of, the occupation was something at home, in-house, whatever, like the husband was a blacksmith or whatever. He had some sort of job that he did possibly from home. I don't know exactly, but he had a business. So for example, I'm in Europe right now. And if you go to any of the old towns, or well, the places where I have lived, for example, if you look at like a Dutch town, a small town that has been there since forever, it's made up of small houses where there's a shop below and the people live above. And the history of these houses, for example, the house that I live in currently, the history of the house is such that there would have been a family living above and there's a shop below, and the shop would have been run by the family. These sort of things are traditional, right? And also like running a farm, this is also traditional setup, right? In this situation, yeah, the husband is the major provider. He's probably doing most of the work for the shop, and he's the one who concentrates on whatever the shop does or whatever the farm does or whatever. But the wife is also going to be helping. She also makes a financial contribution. We've now moved away from all of that, and we now live in cities, and we don't have any shops, and we don't have any family businesses, and we don't have any farms. I mean, for most people, right? So the husband is probably in any traditional setup. He's probably going to be making the major financial contribution to the house by having a normal job, whatever job he has. She decides she wants to stay at home and take care of children because that's what's important to her, and she sees herself as a tradwife. And additionally, she will earn whatever income she can around her children, which means to me that content creation is the ideal job for a traditional housewife. And I don't think anything is wrong with a woman creating content or vlogging in order to make money. And I don't see that as cosplay or not traditional or anti traditional or outside of traditional. Yeah, I understand that for a short time or something in history, there's this sort of idealized 1950s wife, and she made absolutely no money, and her husband still worked a normal career type job. And so this is what people are looking at and saying that this is traditional. But I don't think that that is the only way to be traditional, one. And two, I was discussing this with three other women in Women Against Feminism on Zoom, and I can insert a clip here of what we were discussing.
Traditionalism came from history.
Yeah.
Traditionalism came from the past. So to talk about it outside of the balloon of technology and modern day technology and modern day the internet, everything. Right. You really are you're just kind of, not talking about the actual issue.
Okay, so on that point, I think tradition can change and you could still keep the fundamental parts of it, but like incorporate technology. So like there's this tradwife movement thing, not movement, but there's this tradwife hashtag, and people complain that like the women are actually working because they're content creators. And I find that to be ridiculous in a sense, because I'm like, yeah, they're working, but I don't see any problem with that. And I don't see that as not traditional. I think modern day women would work just like
to wear pants.
I mean, like in the past, I think women worked in the home, and that was a financial contribution at the time.
It was necessary. It was a biological necessity.
Right. So
today, women had to be with the kids. There was kids. Like it made mathematical sense.
Right.
Now we have all these institutions, all this technology, all these other everything's easier, everything's different. The only reason things change is because they change technologically, and this is a growing pain. I agree with you, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but something wrong with my brain.
No,
this is a growing pain, I believe, of society where we are changing, and as you said, we can change. Traditionalism can change, and I think that's what's happening as non-traditionalism is changing. Everything's changing because it's the growing pain. It's like the earthquakes when two tectonic plates are shifting.
But I don't see these women as not traditional just because they're working as content creators.
Oh, of course.
That's perfectly that could be perfectly in line with traditionalism. They're at home, they have kids, they work as content creators. That's their financial contribution to the home. Just as
women have always had a voice in society.
Yeah,
they've raised society from infancy since the dawn of time. Creating content on YouTube is very much a technological adaptation of what women have always done.
And also women have always had some sort of financial contribution, even in the world of tradition. They have done whatever they could from home. In that time that they are looking back to.
Even buying the products that are necessary is almost, you have to, it's almost like financially, if we're going to put it down to women's, traditional women are always providing financially to some degree. I'm trying to think of which ways is that true, specifically financially. One way that I can think of it being true is that they had to make all the decisions on what to buy, where the money goes, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's you.
And also childcare.
To do that.
Childcare to me is a kind of financial contribution because
absolutely,
So I don't see anything weird about them being content creators or having a job or having a part-time job or whatever. I still consider that to be fully in line with tradition. It's probably.
I don't think either group understands. Most of them don't understand the traditions that they are either rejecting or embracing, and they sure don't understand the history. Because all these traditions, they evolve from somewhere. Start because there's a purpose.
There's roots to these trees.
Yes, they have to evolve with technology. And, the technology of the last 150, 200 years, especially, just the last 100 years, everything changed so radically. There's no way that traditions could have kept up. So they had to evolve. And it turns out it became necessary for them to change radically, quickly, instead of evolving slowly.
Okay, so what I gather
I spent like 5 minutes blabbering trying to say what you said in 2 sentences. Thank you.
They're saying they want to stay at home. They are submissive to their husbands. They stay at home. They take care of the kids. The family is most important to them. Most of them have some sort of Christian background, so they are religious. So that's where it comes from. And they just believe in, like, you know, the husband is the head of the household, submit to the husband, stay at home, and take care of the children. This is what
does head of the household exactly mean? Because I think even back when in traditionalism, they usually worked pretty well together as a team, and they talked about that even back during very traditionalist times in their writings.
I was going to say, like, I always laugh when people, like, I mean, if you want to be submissive to your partner, that's none of my business, but don't make it sound like that's traditional. Like, there's never been a patriarchy. There's never been a family hierarchy of men and women. That's never been true.
Hey, we're talking about bonobos here. You're wrong. I'm just kidding.
At the very end of it, there is a hierarchical difference. No matter how equally partnered you are, the man, and this is why this is the basis of patriarchy. The patriarch is ultimately responsible for everyone in the household, which means that when the household falls, he's the one who will absolutely be executed.
I see what you're saying.
And women who got into debt did not have to pay it. Women's debt back in the day, it's like women couldn't get credit cards. Well, they usually could if they wanted to. And sometimes they might have got a cosigner as a man, but even then, it was up to the bank. But so women could get credit cards. And if they racked up a bunch of debt, it was up to the man to pay the debt.
And you have to remember that religious society, they sort of preach this whole obey your husband thing. So that's where that whole head of the household comes
religion.
from.
That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, that is a whole other thing. But women
that's
have
where it's coming
sources of power in those communities too.
For
like
sure.
They're not just obedient, they're also calling the shots in their own.
Yeah. And
they call the shots in society and with the raising of the children generally.
And also they have power within their relationship. Because I mean, I also come from the background of people who go to church and think. The church constantly preaches, woman should obey the husband, but the husband has to blah 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 blah. He has responsibilities to his family and wife, and he can't just do anything he wants. So
I think nobody understands the nature of submission either, because it does not mean being silent and a doormat.
It just means at the end of the day, you're
submitting to his leadership, you're submitting to the marriage itself, and that requires you to have a backbone. It doesn't mean go defy your husband, but you can disagree with your husband and voice your own opinion and still be submitted to his leadership.
As far as I've seen, like jobs all throughout history usually have a boss, sub-bosses, bosses. There usually is this type of hierarchy, and it seems to work pretty well. It's kind of the natural way humans work together. And so I could see that definitely being kind of how it is. My question is often, well, why biologically is that? Because I think those are the things that really upset feminists.
Yes. Well, I don't think, when you look at relationships, like sometimes you do have a more like dominant person, but I don't think gender is really the determining factor. It's just
so many people have told me their mother or grandmother was like the matriarch, and that was it.
I think
Sicilian.
So too.
Our family is a matriarchy. That's
right.
I think so too. I think women often in these traditional relationships also where it appears to be that the guy. I think there are a lot of women calling the shots, because there are a lot of men who are very happy to just who want to please their wives, basically.
Yeah. I think it's very deep inside male psyche to want to please women and help women. It's nature and nurture. And I'm sorry, thank you.
And it can even be that the culture, like religious culture, compensated for gynocentrism by saying, woman, obey your husband, because they know that...
Holy smokes, that's a cool thought.
Yeah. They know what is gonna happen within the relationship, and that women are usually the ones who, have a certain amount of power. But it's a bit. I'm sure it's a bit more complicated than this. But yeah,
I think people don't also like to talk about like the transaction of sex to provision, but I mean it definitely is a thing.
Yeah.
Every relationship is slightly transactional.
Yeah.
Every relationship, you go to the store, where everybody's objectifying everybody if you put it in those context and put it in those terms. But I think a lot of the times you have to think about what terms are we using when feminists talk about objectifying women, oppressing women, or the patriarchy, and like the other term, which was submissive. All these terms are very loaded, and we got to question those at the root.
Mm-hmm. They don't want to question them. They want us to accept their definition.
We've got to do it. They're not going to.
They redefined all these words and want
They redefine everything, including history.
Yes.
Yeah, and they're also very traditional in the way they use words like objectification, where they have exactly the same view of human sexuality as like a lot of those same religious people do, where it's dirty and it's sinful and it harms women, and how dare you presume that this person wants that kind of attention, and fetch me my smelling salts, for God's sake.
The only difference is they don't put any of the responsibility on women. It used to be like, don't show your heels in public. Now it's like, right. And if some guy looks at you, it's a rape. It's an exaggeration, but sometimes.
So they've just, I like your point, Daphne, that you often make, that like feminism is kind of like gynocentrism on steroids. It's just not tempered by any of the other traditionalist viewpoints. But
traditionalism is fettered gynocentrism. Yeah, specifically traditionalism is fettered gynocentrism, whereas I feel feminism is unfettered gynocentrism. We kind of had the reins on, okay, men had to do this, women had to do this, and they did their best because it was a very natural growth because we hadn't yet took this drug of technology that we've been having for 300 years.
And so, as you can see, traditionally, women did work, and the idea of the 1950s traditional woman being the only traditional woman is not exactly true. I think that the things can be like modern times. A traditional setup wouldn't look like a woman just sitting home. Also, in this whole 1950s version of whatever, she had more to do. She had children. She had, nowadays women have less children. And we have more technological advances. We have washing machines, dishwashers. We have everything that we could need. So to say that a tradwife is just going to sit at home and do nothing, and that's the only way for her to call herself a tradwife, I think that's not right. I think content creation is an ideal job for a woman who wants to be a tradwife. I think doing things, whatever she can do from home, virtual assistants, all sorts of jobs. There are many jobs that drop shipping, whatever. There are many jobs that a woman could do from home as long as she's able to do that around the children to contribute to her family. And I think she can still call herself a tradwife. And I think that feminists should celebrate that. From what I can see with this tradwife issue, feminists have a problem with tradwives because they're not working and because they're cosplaying, as in because they're not working and because they're working but pretending not to work, right? And I think feminists should celebrate tradwives on both points. First of all, them not working is a choice, and you wanted choice for women. Allow them to make that choice and trust them to be intelligent enough to compensate for all the flaws that may exist. On the second point, she's cosplaying, she's pretending not to work, but really she is. Well, great, you wanted her to work. That is a part of what she's doing. I think tradwives are simply women who are prioritizing the home and their kids, and I don't see how that could be a terrible thing.